A butterfly in a rainstorm shouldn't survive. The physics of the world says it is impossible. The weight of a single raindrop is massive compared to the delicate paper-thin structure of a wing. If you look at the math, the butterfly should be crushed instantly. It should be washed away into the mud, forgotten like a fallen leaf. But this story isn't about math, and it certainly isn't about physics. It is about the one butterfly that didn't just live, he changed an entire world. If you feel the truth in this, if you feel like you are walking through your own storm right now, tap subscribe, because this journey is just beginning, and you deserve to know how it ends. There is a truth we don't like to say out loud, perhaps because it scares us. Some people are born with storms hovering directly above their heads. It is not because they are bad people. It is not because they possess some dark karma. It is not because they deserve it, but because life, in its mysterious and often cruel wisdom, chooses them. It selects them to show the rest of the world what quiet strength actually looks like. This is a story about one such person, a boy named Ariv. Ariv was thin. He was soft-spoken. He was the kind of boy who blends into the world like a background color. If you looked at a class photo, he was the face your eyes would scan over without ever stopping. He lived in a tiny, forgotten village, a place so small it barely appeared on the district maps, surrounded by endless emerald green rice fields, where the air always smelled heavy, a mix of damp soil, burning wood, and old hope. He wasn't special. He wasn't loud. He wasn't brave. He didn't have a talent that made people gasp. He was, in every possible way, ordinary. Or at least that is what the world told him every single day. But life has a strange habit. It chooses the smallest creatures for the biggest storms. Ariv's childhood was deceptively simple. His routine was a loop that never changed. School in the morning, where he sat in the back row, helping his mother chop vegetables in the evenings, the rhythmic sound of the knife against the board filling the silence. And then his sanctuary, collecting butterflies on weekends. He loved them, but not for the reason you might think. He didn't love them because they were beautiful or colorful. He loved them because they were fragile. He felt a deep, vibrating connection to that fragility. When he held one, he felt understood. He looked at their wings and saw himself, something that could be broken by a mere gust of wind. Every afternoon, as the sun began to dip low and paint the sky in bruised purples and oranges, he would sit near the river's edge. He would wait, silently, for hours, just for a butterfly to land on his hand. Sometimes they did. Sometimes they didn't. But that stillness, that absolute lack of noise and expectation, felt like the only home he truly knew. Everything changed on one specific evening. The day the rain came early. It wasn't normal rain. The elders in the village said the sky looked bruised, swollen with anger. It started with a single heavy drop, then a roar. It was harsh, sudden, violent enough to bend the thick bamboo trees until they snapped like dry twigs. Ariv had wandered too far into the fields collecting his winged friends. Lightning crackled, illuminating the world in a terrifying flash of white. Thunder shook the ground beneath his bare feet, rattling his very bones. The sky turned into a furious gray ocean falling on top of him. And that is when Ariv saw something. A small, bright orange butterfly. It was trapped in the swirling vortex of the storm, its wings beating desperately, frantically, against a wind 1,000 times stronger than itself. It was fighting a battle it could not win. Ariv froze. He knew the rules of nature. Butterflies don't survive rain like that. One drop can break a wing. 2 drops can drown them completely. Logic said, run home, save yourself. The storm doesn't care about you. But something inside Arif snapped awake. It wasn't bravery. He was terrified. His heart was hammering against his ribs. It wasn't logic. Logic would have told him to run. It was instinct, the kind that appears when the world tries to take something you love. He didn't run away. He ran toward it. He cupped his hands gently, creating a tiny cavern of safety, and shielded the butterfly. He covered it with his small palms, pressing it close to the warmth of his chest, curling his own body over it like a shell. He let his own back, his own skin, take the full, stinging punch of the rain. He stood there for what felt like hours, soaked to the bone, shivering uncontrollably. For a moment, the storm felt personal, like it wasn't just rain. It felt like everything in his life that had ever tried to crush him was hitting him right now. The loneliness, the silence, the feeling of being small. He whispered into his hands, his voice barely audible over the wind. Hold on. Just hold on. And that night, that simple act of defiance became the beginning of everything. Because the next day, nature stopped attacking him, and life started. Arif learned something that broke him in ways the rain never could. His father, the only steady figure in his life, the man who was his roof and his walls, collapsed. A sudden stroke. No warning, no goodbye, just a sudden silence where a strong voice used to be. And from that day onward, the storm outside became the storm inside. The butterfly was safe, but Arif was now standing in the center of a hurricane without an umbrella.
When the storm moves from the sky to your heart, there is no shelter that can save you. For Arif, the world turned gray. The vibrant green of the rice fields seemed to fade. Real life crashed into him. Bills began to pile up on the table like dried, dead leaves. Medicine costs, debts that his father had hidden, the crushing pressure of school. The village, which was once his home, became a place of judgment. Neighbors whispered as he walked by, their voices low but sharp. Poor boy, they said. He's too soft to be the man of the house. He's too weak to handle real life. He spends too much time dreaming. This was Arif's wall of salt. Do you know what a wall of salt is? It's not like a wall of stone. A stone wall blocks you. A wall of salt erodes you. It dissolves you slowly, painfully, endlessly. Every time you touch it, it stings. Every day it felt like something was vanishing inside him. His hope evaporated. His future blurred into a foggy mess. His confidence crumbled into dust. He was drowning. Quietly. And the worst part about drowning quietly is that nobody throws you a rope because nobody knows you're sinking. You look fine on the outside, but inside, your lungs are filling with water. And life doesn't pause to let you catch your breath. It keeps demanding. One evening, after another failed attempt to manage the debts, after being yelled at by a creditor who didn't care about his father's stroke, Arif broke. He walked out the back door. He sat alone behind his small house, in the dirt, holding the one thing that still made sense, the small orange butterfly he had saved weeks ago. It had stayed near the garden, hovering around the flowers, as if it knew he needed a friend. And for the first time in years, Arif cried. He didn't just tear up, he wept. He cried like someone who had been strong for far too long. He cried for his father. He cried for his lost childhood. He cried for the unfairness of it all. This was rock bottom. It wasn't loud. There was no screaming at the sky. It was a soft, silent collapse. The kind nobody sees, which is the most dangerous kind. And that's when it happened. A single drop of water fell from Arif's cheek. It was heavy with his grief. It landed squarely on the butterfly's wing. The butterfly fluttered weakly. It stumbled. It struggled to stay upright under the weight of the massive tear. It tilted to the left, then to the right. But it didn't stop moving. It beat its wings once, twice, and then, with a burst of effort, it balanced itself. It shook off the water and stood tall. In that moment, seeing that tiny creature fight the weight of his own sadness, something shifted inside Arif. A tiny grit spark. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He whispered to himself, his voice cracking, "If something this fragile can fight the rain, maybe I can fight one more day." Just one day. Not a month, not a lifetime. Just tomorrow. And sometimes, one tomorrow is enough to rebuild a life. So Arif began. Not with a leap, but with the smallest step possible. He didn't try to become a hero overnight. He didn't try to fix the debt in a week. He woke up 10 minutes earlier than usual, then 15, then 20. Not to exercise, not to hustle, just to breathe. Just to claim 10 minutes of peace before the world demanded his soul. Then he started learning in tiny portions. 5 minutes of English practice while the rice was boiling. 7 minutes of math while walking to the pharmacy. 2 pages of a motivational book before sleep. Micro steps. Invisible work. The kind nobody applauds. The kind you can't post on social media because it looks boring. But it is the kind of work that builds tectonic strength beneath your feet. He took care of his father with patience, wiping his brow, feeding him spoon by spoon, ignoring the whispers of the neighbors. He worked small jobs in the evenings, lifting heavy crates until his arms shook and his hands blistered. He studied quietly at night by the flickering light of a candle. No big leaps, no dramatic comeback music. Just 1 millimeter of progress at a time. There were days he wanted to quit. Days he wanted to disappear into the rice fields and never come back. Days where a new bill would arrive and crush him all over again. But each time he broke, he remembered the butterfly, and he whispered the same line. If small wings can fight storms, so can I. And slowly, something inside him strengthened. Quietly, stubbornly, beautifully. Years passed. The seasons changed. The rice fields turned from green to gold and back to green. And the boy who once hid from rain became a young man who walked through storms with steady steps. He finished school, then college. On a scholarship he fought for tooth and nail. Then he landed a job he had once thought was impossible for someone like him. People around him began to notice something different. It wasn't that he was suddenly loud. He was still quiet. It wasn't that he was charismatic. It was his eyes. There was a resilience in them, the kind that you cannot teach in a classroom, the kind you only get by surviving the flood. One day, while walking home from work, the rain began again. Not a storm, this time. Just a soft, rhythmic drizzle. Arif stopped. He looked up at the gray sky. The old fear tried to rise, but he pushed it down. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel afraid of the rain. He didn't feel small. He opened his palms slowly, and as if destiny was writing the final page of a book, a small orange butterfly landed on his hand. It wasn't the same one. That one was long gone, but it was symbolic in every way. Arif smiled, a slow, quiet smile that reached his eyes, and he whispered to the wind, "Thank you. Thank you for teaching me how to fly in the rain." And in that moment, he understood the secret of life. Strength isn't loud. Strength isn't being fearless. Strength isn't dramatic. Strength is the tiny decision you make on the days you feel weakest. Strength is shaking off the tear and standing up again. Here are the words Arif carried with him for the rest of his life, and I want you to carry them too. Storms don't test your power, they reveal it. Small steps are still steps. Courage begins when excuses end. Your wings don't have to be strong, they just have to open. And now I want to ask you something. The same question Arif once asked himself in the dirt behind his house. What tiny step can you take today, even if you feel fragile? What is your 1 millimeter of progress? If this story touched you, if it whispered something your heart needed to hear, join our Tiny Grit family. We tell stories that help you keep going when life feels heavy. 1 second at a time. That's all it ever takes. Subscribe. Your story deserves its own comeback. 1 second at a time.